All right. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Um,
What's up? Oh, hey.
very good. I have Phill Acevedo right here.
What's up? My name is Phill.
So today we're going to talk about the influence of the French New Wave on today's modern films. We're also going to talk about Martin Scorsese. We're going to talk about his three of his films, The Wolf of Wall Street, Casino, and Goodfellas.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a bit about yourself as a director.
All right. Well, yeah. And as Keanu Reeves says, I love movies. I love watching them and I love making them. I've only made like a couple of short films, like here and there. I'm working on another one right now too. And I'm a full-time producer for a company that I will not disclose on here. Yeah, I've been a lifelong fan of cinema from your typical like mainstream films, story, plot, character, good characters, and good conflicts and resolutions and good overall production value. I'll watch it.
So let's dive into the first question, being
Yeah.
how's the French New Wave had a huge influence on modern cinema. So I think it's badass that the French New Wave had this huge impact on today's world, on the way cinema is shot. Because like if you look at all the big time directors, they've all been heavily influenced by the French New Wave, right? You could see in their work. Let's see, Martin Scorsese, dude, you could see how he's evolved in his cinema. Like his early work, like Mean Streets, you could see a heavier influence. But as he's gone on in his career and he's developed more, he's kind of made it into his own, right? And so he still implements a lot of the new French wave components and elements, but he also, puts his own twist on it. And
Hmm.
it just creates these beautiful masterpieces, right? What defines a French New Wave style?
Yeah. So the French New Wave is definitely like it's a type of style of filmmaking that to me, when I think of the French New Wave, I just think of the overall like disturbance of traditional filmmaking. Like
Yeah.
when it comes to like breaking editing rules and breaking filmmaking rules, breaking story structure. Like it's basically like overall freedom. It's a filmmaker, whether he's an auteur or whether he's just starting out or he just came up with a brilliant idea overnight. He's taking the camera and he's doing something really different, radically different. You watch movies like Breathless or The 400 Blows, and you'll see that during this era of film and cinema, it was very camera still on a tripod, very static shots.
Yeah.
If you look at filmmakers like Jean-Luc Godard who did Breathless, the camera is moving a lot. And it's really handheld, and sometimes like he was running with the camera as he's running with the characters. Like it's just basically just you're exploring new existential ideas and themes into your films. And at the time, that's something that just has not been introduced to moviegoers. Films like The 400 Blows, it just came out of nowhere and it left a huge dent in the film. And then obviously, like what we're talking about today, it inspired a lot of people like Martin Scorsese.
Scorsese was very influenced by Truffaut and Jean
Jean-Luc
Girard,
Godard.
right? So a film like Jules and Jim, Scorsese has referred to that. The first 5 7 minutes of that movie has been a heavy influence for these three specific films: Wolf of Wall
Yeah.
Street, Casino, and Goodfellas.
Yeah.
So I love the impact that the French New Wave has had on this world because I feel like it gives a raw, realistic perspective.
Hmm.
The traditional style was pretty cool and all, but like there's a reason why no one's really gone to that style. They continue just, be heavily influenced by the French New Wave. It's created this legacy. I love jump cuts. Jump cuts
Yep.
are a heavy tool that they use, right? So Casino, Goodfellas, and The Wolf of Wall Street, they use
Hmm.
a lot of jump cuts to like set the pacing, right? Makes it a more thrilling and exciting. And I chose these movies specifically because I see myself rooting for
Yep.
protagonists. My bad. The way the editing and the way the movies are composed, not only do I want to root for them, but I also kind of want to be that. Scorsese's made, these anti-heroes like very favorable and
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to those three films, you see the inspiration for sure. Story structure, camera, and editing techniques. Scorsese's French New Wave inspiration being applied into those three films. Definitely, you can even take it even beyond those three films, you look at films like Taxi Driver, De Niro's having a monologue and he's practicing what he's gonna say, and then like it rewinds back and forth as he's turning around. It's like, here's a man who goes, and then he's like, no, he messed up that line, and he tries it again. Here's a line, here's a man who, nope, and he tries it again. So like you see that style being implemented in a lot of Scorsese. It's really obvious that he was inspired like that style of filmmaking. But in these three films, for sure, you see it in the editing, camera techniques. And obviously, Scorsese has a thing for breaking the fourth wall. In films like Goodfellas, at the very end in the court scene when Ray Liotta, R.I.P., like everybody's in the courtroom and he's directly talking to the camera. You see it in Wolf of Wall Street when was like, was it all legal? Absolutely not. So, but yeah, no, you definitely see it a lot being applied into this film for sure.
For a director allowing his actors to improvise a lot, would that be considered something that's influenced from the French New Wave as well?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, improvisation alone, I don't think it was introduced in French New Wave, but I think it was definitely applied in films before that style of filmmaking or the subgenre, if you want to call it. You hear about it in stories. Somebody like Leo DiCaprio is like, "Oh yeah, that line was completely improvised. Like Marty just let me do my own thing." I think improvisation is one of Scorsese's like biggest tools. He gives performers the freedom to really just go ahead and let loose. It's probably another factor that comes from the French New Wave style of filmmaking, and I think that's just another element that Scorsese kind of took with him and applied it into his films.
Yeah, so I was watching Casino, and so the scene where he's talking about like everybody's watching somebody, right? The cinematography is so beautiful that it made me think, okay, now is that all real, or are they editing it in the sense where when you have Ace, Sam Rothstein,
Hmm.
narrating who exactly is watching who,
Yep.
and as he's doing it, the camera pans over to this person or to that person, and
Yeah.
then but there's one scene where it's so fluid and it pans over to the pit boss, and a blink of an eye, you see a guy walking over, but you just
Hmm.
kind of like get his shoulder or whatnot, but he's out of focus.
Right.
And so that makes me think, okay, now did they go above and beyond and edit that transition that clean, or was
For
it the cinematographer?
Yeah, for that sequence, I think there were some tricks involved for that sequence. I don't think that was all completely a oneer. One thing about Scorsese is that he loves to move the camera around, whether if it's like a crazy whip pan or like if it
Yeah.
tilts up or tilts down. I think when it comes to that sequence that you're referring to right now, I think there was a couple of scenes where the camera would whip really fast,
Yeah.
and that would be a cut. And then you're gonna position the camera to the next person that's gonna, let's say the pit boss, and then you're going to start from the second half of that whip, and then you continue right there, and then the editing you just stitch them together and makes it look like one big whip pan.
So like the Wolf of Wall Street, I love the scene where Jordan comes in and he's explaining, the FBI had sent their lawyers to investigate them, right? So you're following Jordan as he's talking about the scenario, the situation, and
Right,
then the camera follows another employee walks into the conference room where the
right.
lawyers are. So even we still hear Jordan talk, but now it's more on a narration. He's out of sight, out of focus. We also hear the employee briefly interact with the lawyers, and then we follow him out. While all this is still going on, Jordan continues to narrate. Pans over to the office, and then we see Jordan come into focus, and he's walking, getting closer, and now he's breaking the fourth wall.
The iconic shot
The
in
Copacabana.
Goodfellas. Yep.
So doing in my research, I came across a video where they're interviewing Robert Richardson, the cinematographer for a lot of Scorsese's films. And so when they're talking to him, they're saying that a lot of people don't know is when they go through the kitchen, they come around and
Hmm.
they're going into the kitchen when they don't necessarily have to. But it's just that whole scene following them is so
Right,
iconic. They're interacting, tipping. He's tipping a lot of the guys that work there. And then
right.
when we come to the scene in the club, focus is on the table, and you see the table fly in and being presented
Yeah.
for them. It's all one shot, and it's amazing because there's a lot of precision that has to go to execute an incredible shot like that, right? I heard that
Yep.
the editor Shoemaker, right? So she said they had to do that shot 9 times because at the very end, when the camera pans over to the comedian, he forgot his lines so many times that it took them 9 tries. It's made a huge impact on cinema itself, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think all the right notes are on that one. When it comes to sequences like that, it just makes me appreciate everything that Scorsese does because really applying his love for the genre or the subgenre to his own films. I consider him like he's obviously like a notor,
Sure.
and when you watch a film, I don't know if Scorsese has like a specific look. Like if you look at a Tim Burton movie, you can tell just by the visuals that it's a Tim Burton movie
Oh
or
yeah.
stuff like that. But like I think when it comes to Scorsese, I think it's not more visuals, it's more of a feeling. You can feel that this is
Exactly.
definitely a Scorsese
The
film for
thrill.
sure. Yeah, exactly. With his characters, with his dialogue, obviously his music choices, like his camera movement, it just feels very Scorsese-ish.
Yeah.
Um,
So another element from the French New Wave is that, directors they didn't get a lot of the credit they did before in traditional styling of filmmaking. The French New Wave where the Godard and Truffaut had also flipped the script in the sense where, you know, the director, he's the one in control. He should get the praise, the credit, and everything. People go watch Scorsese movies because they know he's directing it. Because he's always going to have a star-studded cast. He's always going to put a good film out there. But the main reason people go to watch his movies is because of his name, for the work he's done, right?
yeah.
And coming to find out that that wasn't always the way, it kind of blew my mind. Watching films and movies throughout the years is like, how do you not go watch this movie because of who's directing it? And so also with that also being said is like when you hear that a director is no longer part of the process where they get replaced, it's like that's a huge loss that a lot of people are excited to go watch that movie because of the director, and now they don't want to go watch it anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, like obviously, middle of the 20th century, like a lot of movies at the time, it was just usually it would be a star that would sell the film, whether it be like someone like James Dean or or even Gregory Peck, all these other old school actors from back in the day. To me, like growing up and studying film, I kind of realized like I always thought that Alfred Hitchcock was that first big director
Yeah,
that's like Alfred Hitchcock presents
you set the tone.
Psycho or The Birds and stuff like that. But no, it actually I mean that was my introduction to like the first like film director that was making more of an impact than a star was, right?
Oh yeah,
But but I mean obviously there was more directors before that dude for sure. But when it comes to the French New Wave, I would say I mean Godard and a lot of these other filmmakers at the time they were kind of like rock stars in cinema at the time because they were just doing something so different when people
pioneers. Yeah,
yeah, they were
breaking the
kind of
mold.
pioneering. Yeah, the filmmaking was very non-linear. It was the filmmaking style just brought more energy,
It's very
right? And I
creative
think,
and
and
very exhibitionist. Like
yeah, exactly. Can you imagine like watching a movie in the theater like and it's like super just boring? I mean, like
bland and
I'm not
generic.
saying every movie before French New Wave was boring, but can
Yeah,
you imagine just watching something like The 400 Blows or like something like Breathless and you seeing just by the visuals alone, you're just like, "Ooh, that's gonna catch your attention." You're just gonna be like,
yeah,
"Oh, what is that?" I kind of want to see what's up with this because I've never seen anything like that before. And if you cut to 40 years later, let's go in the early 90s, when Tarantino was doing his thing, another person that's really inspired by French New Wave.
right.
Um, you see, like when I was growing up as a 15-year-old kid, it's the early 2000s, and I'm watching movies like Pulp Fiction, and I'm immediately drawn to Pulp Fiction because it's something I've never seen before in my life. It's something radically different. But when it comes to Scorsese, you can definitely see it also with his style. His style is he mixes and matches, like he moves the camera a lot, but he also puts the camera on sticks, tripod, a lot too. So it's I think Scorsese is just a student of the genre for sure, and I think he's going to be forever a student. He's also a master of filmmaking, but I think he's said that he's always going to be a student first, and you can see it in his films.
Sure. And like this style just draws you in and it gets you
Hmm.
excited to want to be, along for the ride, right?
Yep.
the French New Wave has impacted so much of filmmaking now today
Hmm.
that that it takes you for a thrill.
Right.
And so I love that like you said, Scorsese was influenced right away, and you could see it in his early work. But as he
Hmm.
progressed onto his career, you could see him, taking it into his own
Yeah.
for
No,
sure.
you're absolutely right on that one.
Yeah. So and that's pretty much been it. Thank you for being on, and
Thank you
just
for
reaching
having me
out.
on. I appreciate this.
Thanks. Take it easy, man.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.